One of the biggest developments I think that's happened in this space probably in years, and this is a bombshell, not reported by our mainstream media or politicians here in Australia yet, but I've just spoken in the previous segment about WPATH, leaks from that organisation now exposing its advocacy for conducting life-altering surgery on children and prescribing them other dangerous chemicals and puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, of course. Now, this is a big story, isn't it, Kirralie?
Look, it's huge, Lyle, and it's not, someone's opinion about WPATH. These are the files that WPATH themselves have written, emailed to one another, gone on the record and off the record, and it's really disturbing that they know that children cannot consent to these procedures. They know a lot of the time the parents can't even consent because of their, poverty, illiteracy, and other complicating factors. They know the devastating harm that boys who go on puberty blockers will never have any sexual function, that children will be rendered sterile, that there'll be bone and brain development issues, there'll be cancers, there'll be, the list just goes on and on and on. They are fully aware of it. They claim to be a medical association. They are not medical. They are not scientific. They don't conduct the studies. There's no rigorous checks and balances on these things, and yet they're held up as the, guiding light and the shining example of transgender care, so much so that, the Melbourne Gender Clinic and others in Australia call it the gold standard of care. And it's anything but. So now they have no excuses, Lyle. Not one politician in this country or gender clinic or Medico or anyone has any excuses. If they read this 242 report, they will be alarmed and disturbed, and they must change their ways immediately. They
must. Kirralie, I was shocked, and I guess this was already on the public record, but it's been highlighted through the leaks. But the president of WPATH is a guy called Marcy Bowers, a man who identifies as a woman. He's a surgeon. He's performed thousands of vaginoplasties, or plasties is probably the correct pronunciation, some on children. Most parents in Australia, I think, would be alarmed if they knew that an organisation headed by someone like this, who's an activist, is informing our child gender clinics here in Australia. WPATH is referenced on the Royal Melbourne Children's Hospital website.
Yeah, correct. That's exactly right. And it's deceptive and lies, which the whole industry is based on deception and lies. And this is just another aspect to it, because they know that if families and children were exposed to the truth, exposed to the reality of what detransitioners and desisters are facing, if they were exposed to the activism that was going on behind the scenes, they would walk away. They would contact their politicians. They would take measures to protect and safeguard their children. But they're sold these lies. They're manipulated with the expressions. I think you and I talked about it last week, that it's better to have a live son than a dead daughter. It's just a lie. It's manipulative. It's not based on any truth. So parents are scared. They've got this confused child. Of course, every parent wants to help their child find health and healing and wholeness in their life. But this is not the way, and here's more evidence to prove that it's not the way.
What do you think it will take for Australian politicians and leaders to speak up about this, for the media to actually do some investigation of this? As we're going to the air right now, the only Australian media to cover this is Bernard Lane, who used to work at The Australian but now publishes on Substack. But there's been a complete media blackout in Australia of this scandal, even though it's got extensive coverage in the New York Post and other media overseas.
Look, it's really infuriating, Lyle, and I can't understand particularly why The Australian or Sky News and others are so slow to report on these things, if they will do so at all. It's irrefutable, the evidence that's there. It's newsworthy. It's something that every Australian should be informed about. I don't know what it will take. I suspect it will be things like legal actions, lawsuits of people, in the next 5 to 10 years realising that they were hoodwinked, they were deceived by the medical profession, and that they have been irreversibly, catastrophically harmed, and we will see a rise in court cases, and only then, I think, will we see that, unless there's a couple of brave politicians, Lyle, we've referenced them before, who are highlighting these issues. We hope that they continue to do that, but I don't know what it's going to take, and it's really frustrating that so many children are being harmed in the process.